Hello guys, I'm Steve. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. If it's your first time stopping by the channel, hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you won't regret it. If you're a returning subscriber, as always, guys, welcome back, and I do appreciate the support. Guys, listen, I'd like to thank everybody that came to the Saturday night live stream last night that I did from Charlotte, North Carolina, which I'm still at right now. And we had a really good time. I appreciate you guys supporting me and coming out and saying hello. But I want to get into some news that dropped a couple of days ago, and more information has come out about it. The story I'm talking about has a lot to do with mental illness and how tragic it really can be sometimes for people that are loved ones trying to keep somebody on the straight path despite their mental, mishaps and disabilities. This story takes place in Bucks County, PA, shout out Bucks County, in which three people were killed for standing on the train tracks by a public transit train coming from New York heading to Pennsylvania. All three people were wiped out being hit by this train. Now, when I seen this, I was like, man, that's really tragic. And let's just take a look at the original story, because more information came out that made this story all the more horrific. May all these people rest in peace, and sometimes love can kill you. Take a look at the original story. I'll come back with commentary.
Tragedy on the tracks. 3 family members killed after they were struck by an Amtrak train in Bucks County. The deadly crash left hundreds of passengers stranded and many questions unanswered as to why the victims were on the tracks in the first place earlier this evening. It is Thursday night, and the big story on Action News is the investigation into a terrible scene in Bristol, Bucks County. 3 members of a family hit and killed by a train. The Amtrak train was coming from New York City when the collision occurred near the Bristol train station just after 6 p.m. Some 240 passengers were on board, none of them injured. Well, within the past 15 minutes, the train was finally moving again. Nearly 5 hours later, Action News reporter Brianna Smith is live at the scene now with more. Brianna.
Rick, the crash happened behind me, but police cleared the scene about a half hour ago after investigating the site since 6 p.m. Now, the Bristol Borough Police Chief did not release the names of those family members who were killed, but he did say this is a horrific tragedy in this tight-knit community. Bristol Borough and Amtrak police are investigating after a train struck and killed 3 members of a family on the tracks Thursday evening.
This is absolutely a tragedy.
Chief Joe Moore says officers responded to the 800 block of Prospect Street around 6 p.m. for calls of people on the tracks.
When our officers arrived, the sergeant was starting to head up to the subjects up on the railroad tracks when an Acela high-speed train traveling southbound towards Philadelphia struck all 3 subjects that were up on the track.
Amtrak says 236 passengers and workers were heading to 30th Street Station from New York's Penn Station. Shauna Haley was one of them, heading home to Center City.
Regular speed, and all of a sudden the train came to like a staggering stop, and you knew something was wrong.
Haley praises the train crew's response and watched as detectives investigated the scene as shown from Chopper 6.
I think everybody on the train is just in shock as to that this actually happened. Like, you hear about these things happening, but you don't really expect to be on the train when it happens.
As Haley waits, she says her biggest concern are the loved ones whose lives will be changed forever.
This is not an easy thing. I feel horrible for the families involved, for the Amtrak employees. They were doing a wonderful job. I do hope that the engineer who's in charge of the train gets all the help that they may need.
Yeah, we're thinking about all those involved and impacted by this incident, and we expect to learn more tomorrow. As for the trains, the northbound lane has reopened, and as we mentioned earlier, that Amtrak train is back in service, bringing hundreds of passengers home. Live in Bristol Borough, Brianna Smith, Channel 6 Action News. Rick?
All right. Thank you for that update, Brianna.
Guys, you've seen the original story, and I got to be honest, when I first seen it, I was like, this sounds stupid. I said, this sounds like they all wanted to die. Like, who would walk on a train track? And that area train tracks, like, I've been out there, not to that exact spot, but I know how like a lot of the public transportation is out there in Philly, where the tracks run for miles, and them trains are going fast when they're going from state to state, coming into and leaving Pennsylvania. It's wide open out there, you know, especially in that straightaway that they're in. And I'm like, how could somebody not see a train coming? It makes no sense to me, because I was going to do this story that something just told me to wait. I was like, don't make no sense. I said, you could see the train coming. It ain't like it's sneaking up on you and knocking you off the tracks or killing you. I'm like, this seemed intentional. Why would 3 family members do this? You know what I'm saying? Well, more information has came out and makes this story all the more devastating and sad. Take a look at this.
The heartbreaking details released today following a family tragedy in Bucks County. Investigators revealed today that the 3 victims struck and killed by an Amtrak train in Bristol last night were a father and his 2 sons. Action News has learned that the father, a mental health advocate, and one of his sons were trying to save the other, who was in the midst of a mental health crisis. Action News' Walter Perez live in Bristol. Walter, just hard to wrap your head around the scope of this tragedy.
Brian, as if the story couldn't be any more tragic, authorities have confirmed, as you mentioned, a man and his son ran down here to these tracks at the Bristol train station so that man could save his other son, who was trying to take his own life. As we've been reporting, that attempt to save the 24-year-old failed. In fact, all 3 were killed. It was not hard to find people who knew and loved Christopher Cramp. The 56-year-old from Bristol Borough was known as someone who dedicated his entire life to helping the homeless and the mentally ill in Bucks County.
In this county, Chris was an adored member of our staff, and quite frankly, he was an integral and irreplaceable member of the social service organizations in Bucks County.
And investigators say Chris lost his life yesterday trying to save someone who is struggling with mental illness. That person was Chris's own 24-year-old son, Thomas. Authorities say Chris and his older son, David, ran to the Bristol train station last evening where Thomas was standing on the tracks attempting to take his own life. That's when an Amtrak train on its way to 30th Street Station in Philadelphia hit and killed all 3. Christopher's and David's deaths were ruled an accident. Thomas's was ruled a suicide. Chris's colleague, Nicholas Amy, from the National Alliance on Mental Illness, says Chris wasn't just a coworker, he was also a dear friend.
It's almost as though a piece of me went right along with Chris.
Amy also took time to encourage anyone traumatized by this case or otherwise struggling with their mental health to reach out to his organization. He adds that Chris leaves behind a legacy that will inspire his organization for years to come.
He was at every event that we had, and I don't know when he slept. So, he really, was a unique individual, and it leaves a huge gap in the community.
Yesterday's incident resulted in hours-long service disruptions between New York and Philadelphia. Service has since been restored. Meanwhile, funeral plans for all 3 are pending. Reporting live from Bristol Borough, Walter Perez, Channel 6, Action News. Brian?
Yeah, and a reminder that anyone experiencing a mental health crisis can call 988 for help. Walter, thank you.
Yo, that's messed up. I mean, that's horrific. So basically, a father, another son is dead because one of them got up on the tracks and decided to take his own life during a mental health crisis. So that leads me to believe, because if you look at the first video I showed you, it said police was racing up there to get him before the train came and they couldn't make it fast enough. They said it was people up on the tracks. So obviously the person standing on the tracks, the other people, it said they came up there or were called up there. So they heard he was up there, got up there before the police. As the police was coming up there, they was trying to get him. The train is barreling down the tracks and they're trying to get him off the tracks. I guess it's a struggle, and all 3 of them, a father, his 2 sons die. That's as bad as it gets, people. That's as bad as it gets. And and the thing that's messed up about this is, you do the best to make sure your kids are well taken care of. This guy was a mental health advocate. So I'm more than sure his son had every available option awarded to him for his illness. But there are some people, man, that have an intensity when they're dealing with their mental psychosis where they can't get out of their own head. It's almost like they're in the prison of their mind, and it drives them to want to take themselves out of here and sometimes take others. I don't know the whole gist of what happened up there, but I know 3 people are dead as they knew a train was coming. That's a serious position for a father to put himself into, you know, and a brother, because both of them loved him. I'm more than sure they was trying to pull him off the tracks at the last minute, where he was like, no, and they all lost their lives, because when a train is coming, it can't stop on a dime like a car, or close to stopping on a dime. Them trains sometimes take hundreds of yards to stop, or miles, depending on how big the train is. Them people had to sit for 5 hours as an investigation was conducted outside for 3 bodies torn up by the train. I don't know if you've ever seen someone get hit by a train. That's a devastating thing. You know what I'm saying? And it's horrific, and it takes a lot of time to clean up, and the investigation is arduous. All of this came from somebody who was mentally messed up, and it took 2 sane people with him. It's just sad. Like I said, you know, may prayers and condolences go out to these people and their families. I'm Stock Market Steve for the Dynamic Reason channel. As always, like, comment, share, and subscribe. I mean, this is something you could see in a movie. And I mean, I'll leave it at that. Peace to the fallen. My man having mental difficulties, he's finally free. But I mean, it was at the cost of the lives of 2 people that really cared for him, that wanted him to be here. Now all of them are gone. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.